He's opening a chance if anyone has anything they want to ask about himself or the practice of meditation. You're welcome to, if you have any questions, Jan was just saying that the real way we get beyond our doubts and the questions is through the practice of the teachings. If we practice the teachings, put them into practice, then we'll know for ourselves. I was just joking that many people, they don't actually ask questions when I offer them the chance. They don't ask questions. It's just saying it. Some people they don't ask because they know, so there's no need to ask. Some people they don't know, but they still don't ask. The only way you can get beyond doubt, uncertainty is through practice, and you'll really know for yourself inside.
When I am trying to meditate and focus on the breath, I find that my mind is too distracted with too many thoughts. Sometimes I retain the thought for 30 seconds, sometimes more, but then again I'm distracted. Is there any way to help me focus on breath only?
And Jan was just explaining that yes, we use meditation objects to develop our awareness, our concentration, and the breath is a very, you could say, universally applicable meditation object, very good for many people for the development of mindfulness. But at the same time, if you find your mind is very distracted and wandering off the subject of your meditation, it's not very concentrated, you can also use wisdom, use your intelligence and train your thinking to help give rise to states of concentration as well. So if you're thinking a lot and your thoughts are very distracted and not very concentrated or focused, why not use your thought in a skillful way? So he suggests you could also do this. You can focus your thoughts on, say, this body and contemplate the nature of this body. Where does it come from? What's it made up of? And this physical body, we talk about it being made up of the four elements: the earth, the air, fire and water. And we can contemplate this, how since we've been born into this world, these four elements have come together. We eat food and drink, and the body gradually grows up. It gets older, and then one day it's going to die. And just contemplating like this, using your thoughts, focusing them on this theme of meditation like this, is a way of using thought in a skillful way, and this will help to calm the mind down. Another method to develop your concentration in a very focused way is to count your breaths. When you breathe in, you count one, breathe out, you count one, so that's a pair. Breathe in again, you count two, breathe out, you count two. But the way you do this is not just count endlessly. You count from 1 to 2 pairs, and then 1, 2, 3 pairs, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5 pairs of breaths. As long as you're aware of your breath going in and out and you haven't lost your counting, you do this, you keep returning to 0 and then counting up to 5, 6, 7, 8 and go all the way up to 10. And by the time you've done that successfully, you've counted 10 in-breaths and out-breaths, 10 pairs. You should find that your concentration, your awareness is much better and your mind is calmer. And then you just repeat it again. You go back to 0, count 1 pair of breaths in, pair of breaths out, 2, 3 and so on. And this way you keep reinforcing your awareness until your concentration becomes very, very well established. And then you'll find probably once that it is well established and you're fairly concentrated, you can drop the counting and you can just follow the feeling of the breath going in and out then. But in the beginning, the numbering, the counting of the breath helps to cut through the tendency to just think a lot. There's many other ways that we can support our meditation practice. For instance, in daily life, we can just learn how to contemplate truth, contemplate the Dhamma, using our thoughts, directing them to truth. And this is again what we call using wisdom to develop samadhi, to develop a state of calm and concentration. So for instance, you can, in your daily life, say you're just walking around, you see trees, you can contemplate how trees, the leaves on the trees, they start off as shoots, and these shoots grow and they become fully green, beautiful leaves, and then gradually with aging, with the passing of the seasons, those green lush leaves start to fade, they dry out, they become parched, and then they drop off the tree. Then you can bring that contemplation back to yourself and say, oh, our human life is much the same. We grow up in this world, we are healthy, and then we gradually get older, we start to age, and eventually we're going to die. And just like leaves and many other things in this world, we're subject to impermanence. Contemplating like this helps to cut off the natural tendency of the mind to proliferate, worry, and be distracted. And if we're doing this in our daily life in any different way, we manage to contemplate truth like this, it will help bring the mind back to the present moment, to cut through the mental proliferation, and this will support the practice of meditation. If we keep applying ourselves like this, learning to contemplate truth in our daily lives, it will naturally bring up a sense of inner awareness, understanding and calm. And this is characterized by, we'll be less caught up in the mental proliferations that cause us suffering, less concerned about our likes, the things we're attached to in life, and our dislikes in life. The mind will tend towards more states of calm, where it's setting aside its normal concerns with liking and disliking. And the more mindfulness and awareness we practice like this, then when we actually come to sit down and meditate, the mind seems much more prepared, mentally prepared, and the meditation will go better. And the signs of the meditation developing, going better, are that we start to experience at least moments of, we call piti and sukha. Piti is like joy or rapture. Sukha is inner contentment, inner happiness. And you can actually experience moments, periods of time where you feel quite content, quite joyful inside. And this is showing you the value of meditation. This is something very important in life, and this is the value of the Buddhist teachings, bringing us to experience these kind of states. And the more we practice them, the more these states we experience them, and the more we'll really know the essence of the Buddhist teachings, not just from what we've heard, but in our own hearts we'll actually know the kind of happiness, the kind of joy that the Buddha is talking about. When we start to practice and experience the fruits of the practice, the happiness, the joy, then we really will see that how it is our good fortune to have come in contact with the Buddhist teachings, to have faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. When we have faith and confidence in these teachings and the Buddha as our teacher, the leading quality or distinguishing quality of the Buddha is that he is the Puru, meaning he is the awakened one, or the one who knows. And this is what he taught us, to develop this sense of inner awakening, inner knowing. The way this develops is through the practice or the training in sila, morality, samadhi, concentration, and panya, wisdom. These three aspects of the practice that we develop in our daily lives, these are developing this Puru, the one who knows, or the knowing, inside our minds. And with this develops the actual quality we call being a human being, or our humanness. Of course, everyone is born in the world as a human being with a human body, but often their minds are not yet really truly human. The qualities of a human being, or the potential of a human being, has not really been fully realized yet. It's only through this development in morality, concentration and wisdom that will bring up the full human qualities, full human potential of the mind. And this is, you could say, is like the real human birth is when we develop and train our minds in this way. And this is something that takes place inwardly. It's not just the physical form that's a human, but the mind actually becomes fully human. Once the real human being is being born inside of our minds, with it come the qualities of a human being, the virtues, the good wholesome qualities of a human being. Then we'll see the value of practice, the value of study. And although it is important to train in study, to learn things in this world, to train our memories, to remember things, learn how to use our minds to think and consider different things, we also ultimately have to know how to stop thinking. This is also part of study, part of practice, because we only experience real peace when we learn how to stop the mind from just its normal discursive thinking, randomly thinking about many things. It's only when we can stop this we'll experience peace. So as we train and we practice more deeply, more sincerely, then we start to experience the state of the Buddha, or the Buddha within us. That means that this inner knowing awareness that we're developing is becoming established in our heart through continual, gradual efforts put into the practice, training in mindfulness, in virtue, in mindfulness, in concentration. And as we train more and more, and this inner Buddha arises in our hearts, in our minds, we'll experience more contentment, more rapture, more happiness for this. And this is the duty, the goal of Buddhist practitioners, is to experience this inner peace. And this inner knowing, or the inner Buddha that arises within us, allows us also to have the clarity to see the true nature of the world around us, to see the true nature of all our experience. That is, that all conditioned things are impermanent, they're unsatisfactory, and they're ultimately not self, they're not ours to possess, to take ownership of. When we have this clear knowing, clear seeing of the way things are, seeing that things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self, then this is as if the Buddha is arising within us, and we're really getting to the very essence of the teachings. So in the beginning of practice, the most important foundation we have to develop is learning how to restrain the unwholesome tendencies of body, speech and mind, how to give them up, abandon them. Just as that famous teaching of the Buddha he gave on Marga Puja explains, Sabba Bhapasa Akaranam, abandoning the unwholesome. Bhapasa, unwholesome dhammas, means unwholesome ways of body, meaning unwholesome actions, unwholesome speech, unwholesome mind states. The way we refrain from these is to bringing up mindfulness, a sense of restraint, learning how to stop our unwholesome thoughts from taking over the mind, leading on to speech and actions, and then turning the mind to contemplate truth, to develop a full understanding, a full clarity of truth. When we practice giving up that which is unwholesome, we are also at the same time developing that which is wholesome, the opposite. And this is the second part of that verse that Buddha gave, Kusala Supa Sampada, is developing the good, bringing good to completion. For instance, all the different good aspects of the practice that we do, say right here today, you're practicing chaka, a sense of renunciation, giving up, coming to the monastery, giving up your time, your energy, your material resources to support the Sangha, to help build the monastery and support the Sangha. This is all acts of renunciation, acts of giving up. And the more energy we put into giving up in different ways, this will increase our ability to train ourselves. Just as many people give up to build this monastery, Bodhivana monastery, it takes great effort, so each individual has to put in great effort to give up to the practice and develop themselves in good, wholesome ways, successful ways. All aspects of the practice require this effort and this giving up, whether you're chanting, you're meditating, you're practicing different acts of generosity, kindness, charity. It all takes an effort to give up our more unwholesome motivations, say our selfishness, our laziness, whatever. And so we must really aim to complete and completely develop the wholesome dhammas of body, speech and mind in the most complete, most perfect way we can. The final verse of this famous teaching is Satchita Paryotapanang Etang Bhutana Sasanam. Satchita Paryotapanang means to purify the mind, to to bring it to clarity, purity. And this is the teaching of all Buddhas. A Buddha arises in whichever era, ever age, he will always teach this same teaching. The mind is purified through clearly seeing the true nature of our existence, to see the impermanence, the unsatisfactoriness, and the lack of self, or the lack of ownership in all of our experience. Normally, the unenlightened mind, it's covered over by attachments, kilesas, wrong kinds of thinking that take it to suffering. But as we continue to practice, then it starts to brighten as these kilesas clear away, as the mind is purified through the practice. It brightens, becomes more radiant, more happy. So everything we're doing is moving towards that state of happiness and clarity. The dana we develop in our daily lives, the generosity, the kindness, brings up states of happiness that you can compare to the state of happiness of a deva, say a celestial being. As the goodness develops within us, this sense of happiness will arise, and it will keep us far away from the opposite, say the states of suffering that once more associated with a state of suffering that leads a being to feel like they're living in a kind of a living hell. We have happiness and we have virtue in our minds, and this allows the level of our minds to raise up and up and up. From the level of, say, just an ordinary unenlightened being who doesn't understand the truth of things, to the level of a Kalyana Chana, say from Putujana to Kalyana Chana. Kalyana Chana means one who is practicing dana and sila and bhavana. They're practicing on the path, they have right view and understanding of what is wholesome and unwholesome. And then one who will be thinking of using their time, any free time they had, to develop their practice, to develop themselves in a good way. All of this begins from the mind. If we train the mind well, it will grow in good ways. It will experience more inner peace, inner happiness, and this is the aim of the practice. You'll just say this much as a formal talk today, but still, if anybody does have any questions, he's happy to answer your questions now. Ajahn thinks you have a lot of faith to drive all the way out here. Most of you drive for a minimum of an hour, maybe an hour and a half, even longer. So he says this is very impressive. In Thailand, people don't tend to drive quite so long to visit the temple, because they have temples much nearer their home. Ajahn just said that this is his second visit to Australia. The first one was at least 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. He hasn't had the opportunity to come. He was building a large hall, a Bojada hall in his monastery, which is now finished, and one other vihara, and now he is more free. He goes to India nearly every year, and hopefully he'll be able to come abroad more often now to visit us and others. He has about 10 foreign monks living in his monastery. There's about 40 monks there altogether. There's at least a couple of Australians. We have from here, Venerable Dhamma is living with him as well, and a few other Australians and many other nationalities around the world are living with him at the moment. It says the Western monks aren't disrobing, so they're staying on, so every year maybe 2 or 3 more monks come, so he thinks within a few years then maybe half of his monastery will be full of foreign monks, Western monks. Just saying that gradually over the years he's become more well known in the Western Buddhist circles as well as in Thailand, and so Wat Nanachat, the international forest monastery begun by Ajahn Chah, they send monks to him. The branch monasteries around the world, in Europe, America, send monks to him. I send monks to him. Also, he says that because this monastery has now become more well known, it's more successful, monks are seeing that, and so they're interested to go and study with Ajahn Anan. And even Ajahn Mahabua himself, Westerners going to ask to ordain with him. Sometimes he'll send them to Ajahn Anan as well. He says if they ordain with Ajahn Mahabor or Ajahn Anan, it's the same. They're both good.
How do they start to learn the language with, the foreigners? Do they have special teachers?
Even though many of the Westerners who come to the monastery, they can't speak Thai, there are some of the more senior foreign monks who have learnt Thai already. They can help to teach and translate. Some of the Thai monks also can speak some English. But the way they teach, they just teach in the beginning very simple things. They don't need a lot of language to get the teachings across. Teach people very simply, because that's all they need, just some simple instructions, and then tell them to go away and practice. And Ajahn also says it's important to understand the Dhamma isn't just put across through speech, through language. We teach Dhamma in all kinds of ways, through our body language and through the way we behave. If we have a heart of metta, so we have a sense of kindness towards others, we smile, we're friendly to others, then this will come across without any words having to be said. If we're practicing mindfulness, restraint, and we're acting in a careful, restrained way, then this will also teach people without any language having to be spoken. He says maybe even in the future, as he has more monks and this monastery is growing, he might send monks here to study from his monastery. And he says this monastery, he thinks, having come here now and seen it, it's a very, you could say, special or rare place now in the world, a very quiet, secluded environment, right on the edge of a national park. It's quite hard to find places like this. There's more buildings here now. We're building this hall, almost finished. So the monastery is a very suitable place for practice. And of course, you all, people like yourselves, come and support the place with your own offerings, with your own practice. So it's a very suitable place in that sense, in that the monastery is supported well. So with all these factors together, it means that maybe he'll be sending monks here in the future. He actually thinks you're very lucky, very fortunate to have a forest monastery here on the edge of Melbourne in Victoria. It's a place where you can come and practice the teachings, listen to the teachings, practice the teachings. So you have a very good opportunity. There's myself, Ajahn Kalyano, here to teach. So everything is there. Now all that's left is yourselves, your own efforts to be put into the practice. If you're able to come, say, once a month, that's very good, because you come once a month, you get a chance to refresh your inspiration, your faith to practice. You hear the teachings, you get a chance to contemplate the teachings, and you go back. It helps you not to forget them, but if you are forgetting them, maybe increase it to maybe twice a month, so that you have a sense of regularly putting effort into your practice, into the different aspects of the practice. And of course, when you go home, don't just leave your practice behind in the monastery. You have to try and keep up a regular practice in your own home as well, to practice the precepts, chanting, meditation. If you do this regularly, on a regular basis, then your own inner peace and happiness will grow from that. Your understanding of the teachings will grow, and you'll benefit more and more from the practice. So while you're still reasonably young, healthy, fit, you've got your health, your this ability, this chance to practice, then use it, make use of that. The question was, what was it like going to India for Ajahn? And he was just saying that when you go to India, you're getting a chance to see human suffering very close up, because obviously it's a country that has a lot of poor people who are in a state of what we say suffering, and particularly the areas where you go if you go on pilgrimage in Bihar state, northern India, is the poorest state of India. So the people there are very poor, the facilities, the environment is pretty tough, and so you get to see that. Not only that, there's the caste system in India, which means that there's a certain inequality in the society, that there's the Brahmin caste and so on. They do have a chance to earn money to do business and earn money, and they become super rich. But then there's other castes who have very little opportunity to do that, and they just, however hard they work, they stay very poor and live in great difficulty. And so you can see perhaps this is why the Buddha chose to become enlightened in India, northern India, because it's when you see the suffering of life that you want to find a way out of suffering, isn't it? And then you want to seek a spiritual path that will take you out of suffering. And that's so obvious in India, then it's a very suitable place to contemplate the Dhamma and to practice the Dhamma. He's saying as he went on pilgrimage last time, sometimes you'd see people lying on the side of the road and you couldn't even tell if the person was alive or dead. You just couldn't be sure. Their clothes were all dirty and they're just lying there very stiff, very still. Last year in the winter they were there. There was one place where there was 50 corpses being piled into a truck. People would, you guess, died from the cold, but you don't know. So this kind of experience just makes you think of the suffering of human life and want to find a way out of it. But of course, there's the suffering of India, but there's also the great joy, the rapture, and the happiness of going to the Buddhist holy sites, seeing them, worshipping at them, bowing, chanting, meditating at those sites. It brings up a lot of joy, and that's the thing also you remember from those kind of trips, is the joy at practicing where the Buddha actually lived and practiced himself. He says, I should arrange a tour to India for If you've been to India, then you come back to Melbourne, you'll feel like you're in heaven. Just saying that it's a good place to practice the Brahmavihara Dhammas. That when you're in India, you see there are the super rich, you see the poverty all around you though, and sometimes it just brings up a lot of compassion and a lot of sadness as well. Sometimes when you're travelling as a tour, you get all the beggars come because they know tourists have money, and you've seen, say, a young girl, maybe 10 years old, holding a baby, maybe for her mother, looking after it, but her trade or her way of getting money is begging, and there's always lots of beggars. So it's maybe someone gives one beggar some money or just throws some money, and the girl wants to get some money, she'll just throw the baby down to go and get the money, because they're so, they've got to get that money if they can. And so it naturally brings up a sense of, just seeing sadness at the suffering of life, the position people are in. But also it brings up, you have to use wisdom, because obviously you have metta, you want to help people, poor people, beggars and so on, but how much can you as one person help? Because you see, when you do start, say, giving money or things to the poor people, then they'll crowd all around you. And say if you have most of these tour groups go on a bus, you start giving out money to beggars, then they'll just surround the bus, you can't move anywhere, and they'll just stop the bus, and they'll even come on the bus, and there's always a danger somebody could get trapped under the bus. Sometimes they get trapped under the wheels. And you give money to one person, then 100 will come. You give money to 100 people, 1,000 will come, and you have to think, well, how much metta have I got? So you also have to have upekkha, which is this quality based on contemplating karma and accepting and understanding that everybody is experiencing the fruits of their own karma that they've made, and that sometimes you may be able to help them, but sometimes not. You just have to accept, they're having to experience their own karma. One year they tried to arrange some giving out of charity to the poor people, and tried to do it in a formal way, so got everyone to form a queue. But there's so many people, the ones at the back were scared they weren't going to get their share, and so after about 5 people giving them some gifts, the rest just charged in. They didn't want to form a queue. And this is the way, when you're very poor, you just can't be sure what you're going to get, where your next meal's going to come from and all that. So you really, you don't waste your time. You're not going to form a queue. The beggars tend to have their own wisdom and experience in their trade, so they learn to look and see who's got the most metta and the most sympathetic, and then they also have great patience, and they'll just stick on to that person once they found the one with the soft spot in their heart. they won't leave them, so they'll be around with them all day, which makes it quite difficult. Say, for instance, Ajahn Anan, one trip he told everyone that don't give to the beggars yet, we'll do it in a more proper way. We'll go to the temple and where they have various projects where they set up education funds, health projects to help the poor people. We'll do it in a more formal way. If you give money, yourself privately, then you'll start to get crowded out and you'll find it very difficult. There's one man who sort of still wanted to do it, so he waited until there's no one around, there's just one child, and he gave the child 100 rupees, which is, a massive amount of money for a beggar in India. But then, of course, these children, they have their own rules of behaviour, and their rule is they have to tell their friends once they're given money. So he told all his friends, so this man, in the end, he had to give all away his possessions to his friends on that trip because they wouldn't leave him alone for the rest of the trip. He couldn't go anywhere. So sometimes in these methods you have to learn what is the wise way to deal with it. So they've been doing offerings at the temples, and the temples do formal charity work that way. They can help the beggars and the poor people. He's also been to Sri Lanka. I went on a trip about 12, 13 years ago, and travelled up to Sri Pada, a famous mountain which has a Buddha's footprint on top. And on the way back down, he found in his bag, his monk's shoulder bag, it's full of Buddha relics, which had just manifested when on top of the mountain.